Okay, welcome to another session. The topic is called The Hidden Miracles of Purim, Then and Now. Now, I admit this is somewhat of an enigmatic title. And I hope in the next, let's say, about 15 minutes or so, that the title will make much more sense. If it does, that means that I did my job. If it doesn't, that means that maybe I should be replaced. Um, in any case, talking about miracles, there's a principle in Judaism that God does not perform unnecessary principles. Do not perform unnecessary miracles. So that idea, first question is, what is a miracle? Anybody want to take a stab, as they say?
I would say a miracle is an unexpected event that's a blessing.
Ah, that's a refreshing way of looking at it.
How about something
Um,
with no scientific basis that occurs?
mhm. Exactly. I thought along the same lines. That's something that cannot be explained within the framework of nature, or maybe even goes against nature. But um, well, first of all, there's a little bit of a problem with those kinds of definitions, because what is nature? And I think perhaps the best example of understanding what is or isn't nature is, let's take the 40 years that the Jewish nation was wandering in the desert. And they didn't have food. It was provided manna from heaven. So the way, it was a very nice existence, like being in a hotel and going down in the morning to the dining my room and having breakfast, and going down again and having lunch, and down again. You don't have to do anything. It's prepared for you. So for 40 years, the Jewish people were blessed, given every day manna. Now, the majority of the Jewish people after 40 years were born in the desert. And for them, what was nature? Nature was going out into the field in the morning and gathering manna. Then they come into Eretz Yisrael, and something completely unnatural, a miracle. You take um, this hard, inedible um, little tiny thing that's called a seed, and you put it in the ground, and maybe water it a little bit or something like that. And a miracle, a plant grows, and a miracle, it has fruit or vegetables. That's completely unexpected. It doesn't go along the lines of nature that those who were born in the desert considered to be nature. And so with that kind of background, I'm not going to try to explain what nature is. I'm not going to define what nature is, but I wanted to be properly covered. And so I looked up definition of miracle, and it's more or less exactly the same things that you were saying, except for the blessing idea. And the two definitions given for miracle. The first one is an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers and is ascribed to a supernatural cause. Now, I don't know exactly what they mean by supernatural, because the next definition says such an effect or event manifested or considered as a work of God. So with that definition, a sunrise is a miracle. God causes the sun. God created the sun and the earth, causes the natural cause of events. So sunrise and sunset is also a miracle. And before getting into the miracle itself, I want to bring one other idea. I think it's quite unique. It's a very Jewish, not only Jewish, but it's a mystical kind of way to look at it, by the Maharal of Prague. Maharal of Prague was one of the first Kabbalists, what can you say, um, lived in Prague about 500 years ago. And much of Chassidut is based on his very extensive writings. And he says like this, that what is a miracle? There's two opposites coexisting. Now, this is important because we'll come back to it later. Two opposites coexisting. And very briefly, he gives us an example, the sun and the earth. We know the sun is distance of 93 million miles from the earth. Now, if the sun were to come down to the earth itself, the earth would disintegrate. It would not be able to survive and exist with that kind of power. The Maharal says on Shabbat, the force that God created the sun, God is a superior force to the sun or to anything else in nature. And on Shabbat, all that power, that godly power, comes and invests itself in the earth, in our physical world. And our world is not destroyed. So this is the idea of two opposites coexisting. Okay, let's get to the idea of miracles. The classic example of a miracle is, of course, the splitting of the Red Sea, which is a misnomer. It's actually the Reed Sea. In Hebrew, it's Yam Suf, which means reeds. Somehow in the translation, and or maybe somebody's trying, is either a typist error or somebody's trying to save on ink, and it became the Red Sea, which is unfortunate because it's confused with the Red Sea today, which is from the Gulf of Aqaba to Eilat. In any case, the whole idea of Purim is based on miracles. Now, for Purim, there's a saying which is probably very applicable to Purim, which goes like, they tried to kill us, God saved us, let's eat. That in a nutshell is Purim. There's also Passover and a few other holidays. The whole story of Purim is natural. God is not mentioned, doesn't have an active role in the whole story of Purim. So it's all natural, except that there's nothing natural about nature. And that is the message of Purim. Very briefly, what is the story of Purim? The king Achashverosh, I don't know how it's pronounced in English.
That sounds great.
Okay, Achashverosh, his queen goes against his desires, his commands, and he has his queen killed, and then he misses his queen, and so there's a movement in all of ancient Persia in which his emissaries go out and find attractive unmarried virgin girls. They're all brought into this like the harem. Is that the correct term? And one by one, they're brought to the queen, and one by one, they're rejected until Esther. Esther was kidnapped from her home, forced into this harem, brought to the king. He liked her, and she became queen. Her uncle, Mordechai, sits around the palace to see what is happening to her. And Haman, I think as you say it in English, Haman in Hebrew, Haman, who was like the secretary of state. By law, you're required to bow down to him when he passes. Mordechai, of course, does not bow down. He gets very angry at Mordechai and decides that he wants to have Mordechai killed. In the meantime, not only Mordechai, but he wants to have all the Jews killed. Now, at that time, the entire Jewish nation was under Persian rule, so that the decree was not against Mordechai, it was not against part of the Jewish people, but it was against the whole of the Jewish people. So Haman goes to the king, Achashverosh, and requests his permission. He says he's even willing to pay 10,000 coins for the privilege of killing the Jews. Achashverosh says, "Oh, okay, great, give me the money. Go ahead and do whatever you want." So, of course, the Jews are, to say the least, upset. And Mordechai turns to Esther and asks her to intervene. At first, she's hesitant. Esther's whole approach, her whole character is reserved, shy, played down. And here she's called upon to save the entire Jewish nation. And Mordechai says to her, one of the most important lines in the entire story, "Who knows if it's not for this reason that you were made queen, that you have the access." So she acquiesces and goes to the king. As she goes to the king, at the same time, Haman prepares gallows to hang Mordechai, and they both come at the same time, Esther, and after that, Haman. The king says to Esther, "Oh, good to see you again." Something because she hasn't been there for a while. "Good to see you again. What do you want?" "Anything up to half of the kingdom I'll give to you." So I don't want the whole kingdom. I just want to know the decree against my people. Your people, who are your people? And that's when she reveals that she's Jewish. And he says, "Who is this monstrous person who to give a decree like this to destroy the entire Jewish nation?" And that's exactly when Haman walks in, and she points and says, "This one." And Achashverosh is angry at him and has him hanged from the gallows that he prepared for Mordechai. That, in a nutshell, is the story. There's much to say about it. There are all kinds of nuances, all kinds of lessons to learn from it. But essentially, that's the. Now, with all this that happens, where's God? Not mentioned once. Everything takes a natural course. Mordechai didn't bow down. Haman got angry. Esther was forcibly removed from home and made queen. Haman just happened to walk in at exactly the same time that Esther approached the queen. Everything is a natural approach, except we said before, there's nothing natural about being natural. And this is really the hidden message and the miracle, or series of miracles, more properly to say, of Purim. Esther, the name Esther, is actually a Persian name, even though there are a lot of girls and women today who are named Esther. Her Hebrew name was Hadassah, but the Persian name was Esther. Why Esther? Esther comes from the Hebrew lahastir, which means to hide, to be hidden, to be covered, to not to be noticed. That idea of something being hidden is expressed in the very name Esther. The work that was written, the Megillah, comes from the word legalot, which means to be revealed. Now, here we have something very interesting. In the Gemara, one of the 42 tractates of the Mishnah is called Megillah, which deals with Purim, also with Hanukkah and several other things. On page 7, I have the English translation, that after the story of Purim, Esther literally says sent, because she sent the message to the sages. And she says like this: "Establish for me for future generations." In other words, she's requesting that in the observance of Purim and the reading of the Megillah will be an ordinance for all future generations. And the sages sent back to her, "You will arouse the wrath of the nations upon us." Well, wait a minute. The whole story of Esther is how the Jews defeated or were victorious over their enemies. We don't want to stress that. It can bring retribution. Again, the entire world was controlled by Persia. So Resta sends back and says, well, I'm already written in the Chronicles of the Kings. In other words, in the Persian and what is it? Madai is Media. They already have it written down. I'm not saying anything new. So the sages continued debating until they found a verse in Exodus that says like this, write this for a memorial in the book, that I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens. Amalek is the quintessential anti-Semite, and Haman was descended from him. So, again, what is this? Is Esther so conceited that she wants a holiday named after her? But this, what we mentioned before, is actually the answer to this to the question that we just asked in the Gemara. Esther is the essence of Purim because Esther is hidden. It means it's the whole idea, the main character, the hero is all behind the scenes. God behind the scenes. He's not part of the active miracles. Each step from the beginning to the end is in itself was a miracle, but it happened through natural causes. As we said at the beginning, God does not perform miracles that are unnecessary. If he could do it through nature, he'll do it through nature. This is the message of the miracles, the hidden miracles of Purim. Now, before we said that the then and now. I don't have to, I'm not going to dwell on the tension right now between America and Israel one side and Iran on the other side. Iran is Persia. But 25 years ago, or 35 years ago, we had Milchemet HaMifratz is called the Gulf War. And there were outright miracles that I think are applicable now to recall, to give us an idea of what, Be'ezrat Hashem, how God will continue to protect the Jewish people should war break out, or any kind of, I don't know if it's a war, but any kind of, how do you say, imut between Israel, America and Israel on one side, and any kind of attacks or whatever. And the Gulf War broke out on a Thursday. On Saturday night, the first Scud hit 3 apartment complexes in Ramat Gan, just outside of Tel Aviv. And the sirens had sounded. We were all at that time, we had rooms that were taped with plastic because there was a fear of chemical war. So we had the radio on, and we knew, they said that there was that one of the missiles, the missile, had fallen in the Tel Aviv area, and the reporter had just arrived on the scene. So the Karyan, who the one who's runs the narrative. I don't know what you call it in English. The
Commentator.
Commentator. It wasn't a commentator. He was actually, it's his program. He's the producer, announcer. Thank you. The announcer asks, as the reporter is describing how the 3 buildings completely collapsed and so on and so forth, the announcer asks him, Yesh uvdan b'nefesh, which means, is there a cost of life, loss of life? And you hear a few minutes of silence, because on one hand, the reporter has to be accurate. On the other hand, he doesn't want to cause any undue fear. Finally, he says, look, I don't know, because there's still undue, but I don't see how it's possible that there isn't. Well, in that, the 3 buildings that collapsed, there were exactly 88 people who were injured. None were killed. Of those, 78 were lightly injured. 8 were moderately injured, and 2 were severely injured. That's the end of the story. It happens that one of the 2 severely injured was a baby, and it turns out that I knew the mother's brother, and he explained to me this way, that they brought the baby to the hospital, and the doctors said, we don't know if we'll be able to save her, but even if we are, she's going to be a vegetable for the rest of her life. That's the way that they were accepted into the hospital on Saturday night. When they came in on Sunday morning, they see the baby jumping up and down in her crib and everything. That's a miracle. I want to tell you another story that it didn't get attention, wasn't publicized. Another missile landed in Ramat Gan, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv, and it hit right by the house of, I have a distant relative who lived there. They told me that their house was completely demolished. Several other houses were demolished. Across from the street from them, there was an old widow, and she was sitting in the living room. The force of the blast forced open a cupboard, not a closet, but a standalone closet, threw her into the closet, where she hit her head and lost consciousness, closed the door, and then the house collapsed around her. Again, a miracle. So this is the kind of miracles that we're seeing in today's modern version of Persia. I just want to add one more miracle. In the war, the past 2 years, there was a rescue operation that Noah Agami and another few, I don't remember the exact number, were rescued. And things went wrong. They were discovered. The car broke down in the middle of the escape. They managed to escape. One soldier was killed. In any case, this team, an elite team, came from a certain base in the south. The army rabbi had tried to get one of the officers to put on tefillin, and he always refused. No, it's not for me. I don't have any connection, and refused. When they came back from this operation, this same officer, senior officer, came to the rabbi. He said, I want you to obtain for me a pair of tefillin. So he's surprised. Oh, why? What happened? He said, after seeing the series of miracles in rescuing these hostages in the middle of Gaza, with the amount of fire that was opened up to us once they discovered, and how we were able to extract them from 2 different heavily guarded places and extract them with the car that broke down and the helicopter coming to the wrong place or being not on time. And we were all able to extract them is nothing less than a miracle. And he closed this this narration saying, all along, I saw God before my very eyes. The idea of a miracle being so strong that, as both of you said at the beginning, to try to explain it through nature it's not going to work. When it comes, and like you said, Sandy, that it results in a blessing, that's like a value added tax. Get a little bit more than what you bargained for. But those are the ideas that the miracles that the Jewish nation experienced hidden. It was Persia was probably about 2,800 years ago, something like that, in the same place now that we're under threat, at least. Bezrat Hashem, that God will continue to watch over his people, to watch over Am Yisrael, wherever they are, and continue to bless us with additional miracles, and that all of Am Yisrael, wherever they are, because today it's not limited to a direct threat to Israel, as everybody is well aware, that the miracles, whether they're hidden or revealed, should continue to accompany all of Am Yisrael, and in that merit will will get to the Messianic era, which is, I'm not going to say the greatest miracle. It's the greatest natural occurrence that God has planned for us. So I wanted to leave time to hear any stories that you have, any miracles that you went through.
I have a question and a comment.
Yes.
I have to say, for probably over 40 years, longer than we were in the desert, this always intrigued me and bothered me in part. You touched upon the Sea of Reeds and, the parting of what I learned in Hebrew school 50 plus years ago, the parting of the Red Sea. And then years later, well, maybe it wasn't such a miracle, but it was low tide and a sandbar appeared. So it wasn't the parting of the Red Sea. But now you bring it back home, be it took 50 years, that the currents, maybe the natural phenomena, if that occurred, the sandbar is the miracle itself. Not that the Red Sea parted per se, but that the tides. And Rabbi Orfman might have seen this firsthand. He went to visit my sister and brother-in-law due to an illness, and they literally are in the Gulf of Mexico, 40 miles south of Tallahassee. And at low tide, you could see a half a mile away a long sandbar. And if he was there at low tide, he would have glanced out their window and he would have seen this sandbar. And whenever I visit my sister, I think of the Red Sea and the parting. So would you say then in summary that even if it was a sandbar and it was low tide, that was the miracle?
To go into the whole idea of the splitting of the Red Sea, there's so many aspects, but definitely there is an attempt to explain all the 10 plagues and the miraculous delivery of the Jewish people after that in terms of natural occurrences. But as we mentioned with just now with the whole story of Purim, even natural occurrences are directed from above.
Miracles, yeah.
So what I do want to say about whether it was a sandbar or not, in Jewish sources, the way that the sea parted with the wind and standing like a wall, and not to say anything about afterwards the waters coming back and drowning the Egyptians. That has to be that's not a regular occurrence. One last mention about that is that a number of Jewish sources say that there was a reason for the parting of the water. That's to one foot, to reveal that which is hidden. There's a whole world under the sea. We don't see it because it's covered. And when the waters parted, what is normally hidden was revealed. And that has its implications, revealing the God's revelation. But it says in Jewish sources that all the water in the world, everything, even water in a cup, was split, which indicates that it wasn't just a side event, a natural occurrence that didn't have any meaning to it. The idea of the splitting of the Red Sea is so exhaustive that I don't know if the last day of Pesach, there's what's called the Sudat Mashiach, the the meal of Mashiach, um, Mashiach's meal, I think is the way they call it. I've been doing it for 30 years in a certain synagogue here in Petah Tikva, which is interesting. It's Jews who came from Iraq. Wonderful, wonderful community. Very, very. And I do it for about 30 years. I've never gone over any kind of idea twice. So the idea, and always speaking just about the splitting of the Red Sea. So it's much deeper. I mean, we could easily talk for a few hours and all the implications and what's the meaning behind it. But so I understand your question. I thank you for the opportunity to try to embellish the whole idea of the splitting of the Red Sea.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else or any stories, miracles that you want to tell?
And not a miracle, just a question from
Yes.
Isaiah. In
Right.
Isaiah's time, wasn't a miracle considered strangers will stand and feed your flocks? Wasn't that considered a miracle?
I think the whole idea of prophecy is miraculous, but there are sources that say that it has to be taken literally. You know, the lamb and the lion being together, and the other sources say it has to be taken as a metaphor. But the whole idea is that it gives the prophecy gives an idea of what the messianic age will look like after Mashiach comes. And you know what? I don't have an answer as to whether it's a metaphor or to be taken literally. I would be very, very happy to experience it and find out.
Do you have time
Okay.
for one question?
Yes.
Is that why there are a certain set of Jews in Brooklyn, Hasidim, a different sect, not Kavad, that don't believe in Israel because they are awaiting the arrival of the Messiah? Are those the
And
Safavids?
yeah, yes. There are those who say that the state of Israel should not have been established before the Messiah comes. Chabad says that whether that's valid or not, the reality is that there is such a thing as the state of Israel. There are in Israel between 7 and 8 million Jews, and can't ignore them. Can't. But they're part of the Jewish people. You're talking about also the extreme that go and support Iran, which the idea that to destroy Israel, destroy the Jews. No, we have to do what we can. It's like I said, it's a reality, for better or for worse. My opinion is for better. We have to make it even better. We have to bring about enough of the awareness and the contribution of the entire Jewish nation so that Mashiach will come. It's not going to be done by boycotting or by excommunicating.
Okay.
Okay, so we ran a little bit over time. Thank you for your patience.
Thank
And
you.
we should
Just
only meet under good circumstances. In the meantime, keep well. The most important, stay healthy. And we should only hear Besorot Tovot, good tidings in everything connected to us, to all the Jewish nation, and especially now with all the tension that there is, everything should be miraculous. All the best.
This is a question from last week.
Yes,
One question from last week about the Ark of the Covenant.
yes.
I read somewhere that in Ethiopia, that there's a religious sect that claim that they have the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia. Have you heard about this?
I did not hear about it. By providence, I saw one of the writings of Admor Zaken, the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, where he talks about. I'm trying to remember. I think he talks about the Ark of the Covenant, and he says specifically, Nignaz, which is when you have something holy and you put it like a Sefer Torah has to be buried, and that's called Nignaz. And he used a specific term, Nignaz, which would seem to indicate or strengthen at least the idea that the ark and the other holy vessels are indeed up in the mountain. Now they may be very deep because what we see today, um, the Western Wall, is only like about the upper half of 1/3 of the entire wall. So the wall, the mount, the Temple Mount, at the time of the first temple, when Solomon built it, was much, much lower. It would be all underground from what we see today. One day, I'm confident that one day we'll get it back. Again, like I said, I don't know. I don't have all answers for everything that will be answered
Well,
during
isn't
this.
the theory is the Ark of the Covenant is buried underneath where the temple was, way
Yes,
below where the
right,
second temple was?
right. Yes, yes. That's why I say that the first temple was under. Even the second temple. Among the excavations in the old city, some of the original streets and marketplaces at the time of the Second Temple. And to go down to see them, you have to go down. You have to go like 2 flights of stairs. So Jerusalem has been conquered and destroyed so many times that it was destroyed. All the rubble was flattened out and built upon that. And then it came again, the first temple, the second temple, the time of the Bar Kokhba revolution, the Byzantines, or the Crusades. So the the original Temple Mount, where Isaac was bound, is much lower than what we see today, where the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are located. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Excellent.
Thank you. Take care. Keep well. Again, as I said, and as you said, Sandy, many, many blessings. All the best.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank
Always.
you for your time.
Oh, are you here next
Okay.
week?
I hope the rabbi is back.
No. Well, between the two of you. Excellent. All right.
Okay. Keep well.
Shabbat shalom to tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom. B'serot Purim Sameach.
One question.
Oh,
When you
yes.
in Israel, when you hear Haman, you use the noise
Right.
makers as well?
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah.
That's
In most communities, whenever they mention the word Haman, then they make a racket.
okay.
In Chabad, we only do it when there's a what's it called, an adjective. Haman, the Harasha, the evil Haman, or things like that. So we don't do it so many, but when we have finally the opportunity to do it, everybody goes crazy.
Okay, thank you.
Keep well. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
And see you next time,
Sure.
whenever it is.